Say, how are you doing today? How are you doing today? Y'all already know I'm your host, Lacey G. Souldier Turner, and today I have a very special guest with me. She's an author, minister, licensed social worker. She's a psychotherapist, production therapist. She is the founder and CEO of Restorative Minds Therapeutic and Wellness Services. She just been doing a whole lot of great things, and we definitely going to get into a lot of the great things she's doing. So, without further ado, we have the wonderful, amazing, talented Candace Washington. Welcome to the platform.
Hey, what's up? Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
No problem. I love the joy that you bring out. You just got the
Aw.
joy. So, my first question, to let the people get to know you, can you tell the people where were you born and raised, and how was your upbringing as a child?
Yeah, so I'm a country girl at heart. I am from Alabama. I was born in Selma, Alabama. So partially I was raised in Alabama, but then I'm also a military brat. So both of my parents served in the army. So we moved around, frequently, and we rested in Maryland. So half of my upbringing is Alabama. That's, my roots. Like I said, I'm a country girl. But then I've also, spent the last 24 years in Maryland. So Maryland is home. It's still, where I reside. And like I said, I'm a military brat. So I traveled a lot. I experienced a lot by, being in that culture, the military culture. But it exposed me to a lot of great things, a lot of great opportunities, a lot of diverse, persons and environments that I believe really shaped who I am today.
Okay. Can you give the people, I guess, some your education background afterwards?
Yeah, so I graduated from Bowie State University in Bowie, Maryland, with my bachelor's degree in psychology. I've always been intrigued by the mind and why we think the way that we do and why people do the things that they do. So I've always been intrigued by the mind and how it works. And then I went off to Howard University, HU. I went to Howard University and got my master's in social work because I wanted to continue that education because I always knew that I was destined to help persons. And I know we'll get more into my story here in a second, not in the way that I thought that I would be doing today, but I always knew that I just love people, man. I just really do. And I want to see people well and thrive in their respective ways in life and in their career. So I always knew that that was something that I was led to do.
Okay. And I also saw that it said that you were a suicide survivor. So,
I am. I
so and,
am.
and especially like with bullying and everything going on, that's a big problem in our society, period.
Yeah.
Can you tell the people about that though?
Yeah, for sure. So I have this tattoo right here on my wrist on the right side that says breathe. And it's what I got tatted on me after my third suicide attempt, which was just in 2019. So there's been a lot that has happened in these last several years. But I got the tattoo breathe because it reminds me that I'm still breathing. And as long as I have breath in my body, that means that I have a pulse. And as long as I have a pulse, that means God has a plan, which means I still have a purpose. That means that however life shows up for me, it's just in the moment. It doesn't equate to a bad life. But I think a lot of times people don't realize that pain, trauma, loss, grief, it changes you. It changes how you think. It changes how you see yourself, the world, those that you love. It changes you. And growing up, I realized, especially in our community, if we're real, what goes on this house, it stays there. Children are supposed to be seen and not heard. So in the Black community, a lot of times we mask our pain
Yeah.
and we learn the art of silence, or we take that pain and we put it into other sources, right? And that's how I merged what I do as a production therapist, because I put my pain into art. It's what I saw on the television, it's what I heard on the radio that allowed me to transcend from my reality and to go into this world of imagination, of joy and love and peace. And that was one of my healing sources. So growing up, because I didn't have the outlet to put language on my pain, I masked it and I did it in unhealthy ways, right? I did it in my behaviors, hypersexuality, alcoholism. I just celebrated 4 years of sobriety, right? I thank you. I masked it in different ways. Sometimes we mask our pain and our achievements. We work, 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 do, create, create, create,
Mhm.
because we're in this flight sense, right? We hear fight or flight. We're in this flight sense. We can't be still, because the moment we're still, we're left with that pain, we're left with that stress. So I would create and I would work and I would do all of these academic endeavors and accomplishments, but behind closed doors I was hurting.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until my last suicide attempt in 2019 that I realized, yo, I don't want to die. I just want the pain to stop. I just want to have space to not be okay and not have to work over it. I'm a mom, right? I have two boys. And sometimes we put all of these titles that we wear over ourselves. And what I realize is that if I don't put myself first and pour into myself, I'm not going to be any good to anybody. And the moment I did that, the moment I really sat down and got into therapy for myself weekly for a year straight, I just paused. I realized that there were a lot of things within my childhood, within adolescent years, even with, in my adult years, going through a divorce and being a mom of two boys, all of these different things, I never put language on it. And therapy gave me that outlet to do that. And again, to know that it's okay not to be okay. It's not a reflection of who we are in the world. It's really strength and courage to say, yo, I'm hurting right now. I'm not okay right now, and to have tools to do that in a healthy way. So here I am 4 years later, and I really can say I don't look, feel anything of what I've gone through. Right. But this is why I do the work that I do. Because Dr. Maya Angelou once said, as soon as healing takes place, you go out and you heal somebody else. So what I went through is bigger than me. It's bigger than me.
And it's crazy you said that because I just like you just I just started therapy this year, because I
Yes.
was listening to
Come on
Charlamagne.
now.
Yeah, see, yep. I was listening to Charlamagne, and he was like, "It's always healthy, to talk with someone."
Yeah.
So I just started that this year. Like I just want to. I've been always, on this improving myself, you know.
Yes.
Period. So it's great that you said that. Let me know I'm on the right journey too.
Yeah. And you saying that, there is a myth as it pertains to therapy, especially in our community, that something has to be wrong for you to get therapy. Therapy is very preventative. It's preventative work. It gives you spaces in, a sacred space, a safe space to put
Yeah,
language on your pain without judgment,
yeah,
without a response of guilt or shame. And again, it's not a reflection of who you are and your abilities in the world, but it allows you to show up even better in
yeah,
the world, because you know what's going on internally. And what is going on internally, it's going to show up externally. It's going to show up in how you deal with people. It's going to show up in your work. It's
yeah,
going to show up in how you love others, how you love yourself is going to manifest. So it's like us having this conversation, it really does debunk the myth as it pertains to therapy in the Black community, that there's no face to mental health, there's no race, there's no denomination, there's no class, what's in your bank account. None of those things matter. We're human, and our brains is one of the most like powerful beings of ourselves, but it's also the most fragile.
facts. Hey, look, she dropped. Hey, look, Cat just dropping them jewels on y'all. Candace, let me ask you, like speaking of mental health, I know you teach mental health services through advocacy,
Mhm.
consulting, education, and clinical support. So, can you just, I guess, stress how important it is to, teach those services? Because, like, a lot of people have been walking around with, undiagnosed treatments
Yeah.
and, the killings. Like I said, killings been going on. So, can you tell how important that is for the community?
Yeah, education is key. I think a lot of times before persons come to see individuals like myself, they'll listen to a podcast, they'll watch a show,
Yeah.
they'll, go to the movies, they'll listen to music. And I think all of us really, even yourself included, even bringing me on your show today, you're a mental health advocate, because I always say we never know who's listening. You never know. This may be someone's last resort and be like, yo, somebody sent me this dude's podcast. I'm gonna check it out. I don't know what I'm about to receive. And then boom, they get an answer that they was in need of. And that's a lifeline. So I'm big on education. I'm big on fostering these conversations in all of these spaces, because I know the power of the media. I know the power of storytelling and the power of education. And it really disarmors us to have somebody like yourself. You don't know what dude was just listening and be like, yo, if he can go to therapy, I can
Oh,
too.
yeah,
Like, it's not a
definitely.
reflection of my manhood. Like, all of those things, because again, society will really beat up on you for taking care of yourself. And self-care is not selfish, it's self-preservation. Because if you're not good, if your cup is empty, how are you going to pour into anyone else's cup?
Mhm.
So fostering these conversations and putting a face on it. That's why I'm not ashamed of my journey. I'm not ashamed to say, I tried to take my life 3 times.
Mhm.
Three, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And I'm a mother, and I'm a minister, and I'm all of these things. But one of the things that I realized is that transparency transcends. It heals. Someone needs to hear the truth and to say, wow, if they made it through, then I can too. And
Yeah.
knowing that our experiences, it changes us psychologically. It just does. It changes how we think. You may know somebody, and every day you see them, they dapping you up. They're filled full of joy and life. And then the next week, it's just like a totally different person. You
Yes.
don't know what transpired from the last time you saw that person to today, right?
That's right.
We have to give each other grace and compassion. So fostering these conversations about mental health competency, I really do believe it extends that grace and compassion that we all need. But especially us as a race, historically, we can go all the way back. We didn't have the opportunity to put language on our pain. If we did, that means we're weak. That means we're not strong. That means that we're hypersensitive.
Yeah.
All of these labels. But what about we're just human? And
Mhm.
we feel and we have emotions, and things just hurt and they stress you out. And I always tell people that you have to be okay with feeling, because how can you heal something that you're afraid to feel?
There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
And even with my therapist, like, I want to, understand why was the way I've been, like, in just past relationships or as a
Yeah.
child. And she told me, she was like, we went through everything, and she was like, I didn't, never processed it. But she's like, it's not an excuse for why you do it, but it's an understanding. Now you understand
Understanding.
why, So
Hmm.
I love therapy.
Yeah.
I encourage everyone to go to therapy. It's a great thing. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this, Candace. Do you think, because like you say, you're a suicide survivor, are there
Hmm.
any signs, that people, can
Hmm.
tell when
Hmm.
someone is about to commit suicide or something?
Yeah, I think one of the things is behavior changes.
Mhm.
Behavior changes. I just gave an example as it pertains to someone's personality. For me, personally, and I'll get into some other ones, alcohol intake increased, right? I retreated a lot, went into isolation. Um, I had a lot of crying spells, right? But then also, you can physically see some changes as it pertains to exhaustion, because when we're going through some stressful times, it is exhausting and is debilitating on our bodies,
Mhm.
right? And at times, my vice may not be your vice, and what may be terminal for me may be tolerable for you. That's why we can't compare journeys. Me and you can go through the same thing,
Yeah.
right? But
Mhm.
it'll show up for us differently. And that's why we can't just look inward, outward. We just have to be able to see the person for who they are and not how we deal with things. So you see those behavior changes. Sometimes people will actually be vocal. I think towards the end, when I was getting closer to that attempt, I did become more vocal with
Mhm.
friends, and say, I'm thinking about this. I think about death often. I think about X, Y, and Z. But again, what may be terminal for me may be tolerable for you, right? Because
Mhm.
again, pain shows up differently, and it can bring upon some triggers that was at the root that are now coming up to the surface. And I think it's important at times we have to even go back to childhood. We have to go back to our adolescent years because there's things there that were never dealt with that now grown Candace is experiencing, but it was really little Candace that was doing the crying,
Mm.
right? And that's why we can be in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and then something triggers us and we revert psychologically back to the age of that trauma,
Mm.
back to the age of that experience. So looking at people's responses, right? Because that means there's something going on at the root of that, those behavior changes, poor appetite, overeating, insomnia, hypersomnia, going into this hyper aroused state where you're just becoming lethargic and numb and shutting down, going into this hyper aroused state where you're just so emotionally distressed all the times that you can't calm down. All of those are things to watch for. Language is one of the biggest things.
Yes, definitely.
Right? Language is one of the biggest things. And I think if we give each other the opportunity to foster these safe conversations, because a lot of times people may not feel safe because they know that they're going to be judged.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right?
Hmm.
So be a safe person. Don't just utilize the term because we hear it all the times. Be it.
That's right. B.
Be it.
Yeah.
Don't just say, hey, if you need something, I'm there. No, no, no. Be it. And I think that's what we're fostering now and having all these conversations. And I know you mentioned Charlemagne the God, because these things are important to get through the airwaves.
Yes.
Because again, you don't know who's on the other side of this.
Facts. Hey, listen. Candace dropping them jewels on y'all again. Pay attention, now. So, Candace, what got you into, I guess, being an advocate?
My journey. My journey. I think for me, going off to Bowie State and Howard University, I'm also an Air Force veteran. So when I was serving in the military, I myself experienced sexual harassment and stalking, which led me to increasing my alcohol intake. Because again, we all have our different vices to relieve ourselves of pain. For me, it was alcohol, and I abused it. And it let me getting arrested and being charged with a DUI. And by the grace of God, they were able to reduce it. However, I was looking at two options there. I was looking at either serving 180 days in jail, which, if I'm honest with you and everyone listening, I don't even know if I would have made it a night. That ain't for me. That is not for me. But don't know if I would have made it. But the judge said, you never had anything, on your record. So I'm gonna send you to this drug and alcohol treatment program. And I think that scared me just as bad because I never been into a situation like that. So to be around all of these different persons that some may have had a similar journey, or others may have been on some much harder things than alcohol. And I had to be in this environment that shook me up. That shook me up. And I honestly thought that experience got me together, right? But it didn't. And then I got it together for a little bit, then I got married, and then the marital issues brought up some childhood things I never dealt with. And then I went back to drinking, went back to that same, because remember I told you we can be mature in age
Yeah.
and not be mature psychologically to our responses. So just because I was mature in age, when that pain hit, I went back to drinking, right? So that was just a prime example. I went right back and I hit it even harder. And that's when that third suicide attempt came up. So after that third suicide attempt, then I realized, like, if I want to be better for myself, for my children, for those around me, I got to make some hard changes. And I stopped drinking and I got into therapy. And after that, when I thought about my education, I was going to go back to the military, right? And help those persons that experienced what I did. And God took me on a whole different journey that I'm so thankful for, because now I'm sitting here talking to you. And I realized that the work that needs to be done is in these therapeutic spaces. I never thought I was going to be a therapist. I never thought I was going to be a productive therapist. I never thought I was going to be traveling around the world sharing my story and being a suicide prevention speaker. But here I am. But I had to go through it. I had to live it. And I think for some of us, I'm not generalizing what I'm about to say, but for some of us who are therapists that have been on both sides of the couch, it's a different experience and a ball game for us when our clients come in, because we don't just have the education, we have the lived experience. We know what it feels like to feel like, I'm checking out of here. We know what it feels like to be wrestled with so much pain and use unhealthy vices. So it was my journey that led me here. And I really don't regret anything. I don't regret the tears. I don't regret the pain. I don't regret the heartbreak. I don't regret the losses. I don't regret any of it. I had to go through that. I had to go through that because I wouldn't be who I am today and where I am today if it had not been for that journey.
That's hey, like that's great. And look, it's funny you say about the jail stuff because I went to college. I write and direct movies.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
So I had went to college, and at the time I was too poor to like pay child support and stuff, right? So I
Hmm.
was going work study, but I was giving whoever all my money, right? So I had to go to court, and my lawyer was like, the judge said you could do either 60 days in the workhouse or 120 days of county. I said I can't do neither one of them. So they had like just put me in for a weekend, and then it was good. But I was like, hold on, I was like, bro, I can't survive. But
I can't. No, 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 no. I am praying for that because,
yeah, so.
man,
And when you
ooh,
said that
I don't
story,
know.
I was like, I relate.
I don't know. I was just like, when I say I was boohoo cried, I was just like, my mother was sitting in the back with my son. I was just like, oh, this is a Lifetime movie right here.
Yeah.
What in the world is going on?
Like I'm not meant to be in jail.
I was like, how did I get here? But
But I feel you. And even with your journey, like I stopped. I used to do like vision boards, but then God just be having me all open and all anything I be thinking, He
yeah,
just opened doors for me on another journey. So I just let God handle it.
yeah, and that's, to be honest, I feel like it's so liberating
Mm-hmm.
to just be able to allow God to order your steps,
Yes.
because I have amazing dreams, and I know we're getting to the production therapist work,
Yep.
but I say I have amazing dreams, but what I have realized is that God has superseded them, because what I'm doing now, I would have never imagined how God has merged my love for storytelling, my love for theater, for the creative community, with my passion for seeing people well and healed as a therapist, and how all of that has like come together. I'll tell you, it's so overwhelming at times
Got
in
it.
a good way, because I know that there's a need. And again, I know the power of the media and storytelling. And I know it's healing in that. It's joy in that, it's laughter in that. Because when I was going through my bout of depression and alcoholism and having those suicidal thoughts, yo, there were times where I would just lay in the bed and watch Living Single all day. It was days I would just lay in the
Yeah,
bed,
I've been there before. I
watch
know.
Soul Food. It was days where I would just lay in the bed and watch A Different World and New York Undercover, like all the '90s shows. I'm an '80s baby, but I'm still hooked in the '90s for some reason.
Yes, me too.
But
Hey,
I still would watch those
incredible.
shows, and what I realized is those were my comfort shows,
Mhm.
because it allowed me, just in my childhood, it allowed me to escape from reality and go into another world that didn't exist in mine.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
So what you do is so powerful. And I tell people, creatives, all the time, I'm like, if you're in front of the camera, behind the camera, you just don't know how much power you hold.
Yes.
You're creating things, even in comedy, because like I said, it was nothing going on in my life that I had to laugh about. I would sit in that bed and I would cry, but I would laugh, but I would cry, but I would laugh. It releases those dopamine and those endorphins within me, because I didn't have that. So what you do is so dope. It is so dope, because so many people, that may be their lifeline, what they see and what they hear.
Yes. Oh man, I love it. Listen, one more time. Candace is dropping jewels on y'all, man. Pay attention. So I also see that you are the author of Breathe, Rest, Reflect, Reset, and also Women of God 60-day devotional. Can you talk
Mhm.
about both of those?
Yeah, so, for me, even growing up as a child, I used to always have a notebook, always pen and paper. And again, when you're not always able to express yourself verbally, that expression has to go somewhere. So for me, it was through writing. And when I was going through, that bout of depression, on the brink of divorce, all of those things in 2019, God told me to write. He told me to write everything that was going on. And if I'm honest with you, as I was writing my first book, Breathe, because I so desperately wanted to breathe, sometimes life feels like it just sucks the air out of you.
Mhm.
Um, I honestly didn't know if I was going to live to see that book come to fruition. I thought that that book was going to be something others read, after I was no longer here, that I could leave something for others to stay here, right?
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful that I'm still here to just see all of these things come to pass. But I wrote it all, even in my journal entries, the pain that I was feeling, expressing, all of that is in the book. But I also shared how I used my faith, my community, and therapy
Mhm.
to heal, and what that process looked like for me. So it's part memoir, it's part Bible study, but it also shows for those that believe in God that mental health isn't new to God,
Mhm.
right? If you, sit with the Bible, there's so many different stories about those that are dealing with just their pain and their grief. And what I realized is there's a story in the Bible about a prophet named Elijah who was suicidal, depressed, and was just like, I've had enough, take my life. And I feel like all of us have been there when we're like, God, I've had enough of this relationship, these children, this job. Why I started this podcast? What's going on? I'm just tired of it all. You can take it. And it may not have been to the point where I was, where I wanted to take my life, but I feel like we've all experienced that moment of like, I've had enough of this. Like, I'm good without it, right? But it was God's response to Elijah, and how he took care of him and didn't like beat up on him for being human, but loved him through it. And I want people to experience that same love, and to know that it's okay not to be okay, and that we can hurt and be human and cry and feel. And it's not a representation of our strength, but there's actually strength in that. And we have to, redefine how we see a strong Black man. We
Yeah.
have to redefine how we see a strong Black woman, and give people space, because the suicide rates, the rates of just mental health in general, are drastically increasing.
Yeah.
I'm one person, and I tell you, like, I get more inquiries than I can really fulfill. So there's a need in our community,
Yeah.
right? Because we've been sweeping all of our issues under the rug for so long. And I think putting language on these things is just so healing, is so therapeutic. And that's why I wrote both of those books, to give persons an opportunity to breathe, to rest, to reflect on what it is that they're experiencing, and then reset. And I think we're going to have to do this in all points of our life. You're going to
Right.
have moments where you have to rest, moments where you're just going to have to sit and think and reflect, and then reset, so you can continue doing what it is that you've been called to do.
So where can people get these books?
Everywhere books are sold.
I'm
Amazon,
going to get it.
Amazon Books a Million, Target online, anywhere books are sold.
And like I definitely got to get that. What you, especially what you just explained and everything, your journal entries. I'm going to
Yeah.
go for those for real.
It is real. I've had so many different responses. Some person said they started reading and they had to put it down. And I understood. Because sometimes we're not as transparent with our thoughts as again, that perception. But I ran into someone in the industry recently, and they said, when I first met you, you were just so put together, mind, body, and spirit. I couldn't imagine as a mom that you thought about taking your life, and you had two boys. And I realized that a lot of people don't understand, again, how pain just changes you and how you think. And it's like, again, our brains are just so powerful, but it's so fragile. It's like clay. So it's
Yeah.
just like, you think about a clay in a perfect structure, every experience, if you leave like a fingerprint on it, by the time you're done, the whole shape of it has changed. So
Mm,
if the shape of your brain has changed after you have experience, what makes you think your functionality isn't
exactly.
going to change?
Exactly.
Right? So it was just like, a part of me in those moments was fighting to stay here, and then the part of me was just like, they'll be better without me. So I think in that book I was so transparent and raw that some persons needed that, and some persons, again, they had to feed themselves that information moment by moment. They just couldn't sit in it fully, because again, it will bring up some stuff within you,
Yeah.
and I think we need to start digging and knowing that it's a process. There's no timetable on this thing now. You know what I'm saying? We
Right.
got to not compare journeys, and knowing, like, for me, like I said, I had to sit with that for a year, right? But even now, I'm so transparent. Even now, I'm a therapist with a therapist. And I
Mm.
say
Yeah.
that to say, I hear so much, I pour so much out. I need a space just for me where I can take this therapist head off, where I could take this mom head off, this man, all of these different heads off, and just be. And
Yeah.
there's no shame in that. Like, I feel no type of way. And I tell persons that's looking for a therapist, it's okay to ask questions. Like, do
Mhm.
you yourself have a therapist? Are you
Hey,
yourself
look.
well? How you gonna help me get well? And you're like, come on now, we gotta ask these
Yeah.
questions.
Hey,
It
look.
is
I
okay.
went on Facebook and I went on Facebook and was like, "Do y'all know any therapists?" And then
Yeah.
when I got narrowed it down. I was asking them questions. Hey, do you do know what's this like?
Yes.
So definitely ask questions.
Ask questions, and ask the questions that you need the answers to. This is what I'm dealing with. Are you equipped? Do you have the capacity? Do you have the knowledge, the know-how? Right? I'm big on that, because these are people's lives. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And it's not something to take lightly.
Definitely.
You shouldn't take lightly who you share your life with, because in these spaces, you may share more of yourself than your sister know, your brother know, your
Yeah,
mother know, your best
yeah.
friend know. Like, that's real. So it's something that I take seriously, and it's something when I educate persons on finding a therapist is, hey, these are some of the questions you need to ask, because everybody ain't gonna be a good fit for you,
That's right.
even if they're qualified.
That's correct. Hey, once again, Candace dropping them knowledge, right? Dropping them jewels. Oh yeah. So let me you are part of the production team on the new, what I'm going to call a hit movie already, for what it's worth.
Yes.
It appeared March 7th on BET Plus. So can you tell the people about the film, what it's about?
Yeah, so for what it's worth, it just dropped BT Plus March 7th. It is such an amazing movie. It is medicine and candy, really. It's a different type of movie that really deals with mental health. It has an underlying mental health issue. The underlining issues of mental health is revealed in the movie, right? And one of the things that I loved is how the writer LaJill Hunt and the executive producer of the film Loretta Edwards Wilson really wanted to tell the story in a unique way. So it deals with foster care siblings who grew up in an amazing foster care family, and they all became very successful. Very successful. I mean, doctors and persons over foundations, very successful, right? But they never dealt with issues in their past, and something happens in the family that brings them all together, and those issues come out. And I think it's very important to watch the film, because these are our cousins, our aunts, right, our sisters. And again, sometimes we hide ourselves from those that we love, and we keep secrets and we mask them until it's either too late, or until something happens
Yes.
and we're forced to share and then foster these conversations. So it's a very entertaining, dramatic, it'll make you laugh, it'll make you want to fight some people. um but again, it's medicine in candy, meaning at the end of it, it'll cause you to kind of look within and foster those questions around your own healing and your own wellness. So as the production therapist on this film, it was an honor to work with the cast and crew, and it's something that is new. There are a lot of production companies in Hollywood now that are starting, right, to have therapists on these sets, but it's still so very unique, right, and taboo. But I love that Loretta Edwards Wilson saw the need to have myself on set. well, for post production, to work with the cast and crew one on one to give them wellness sessions, because a lot of times people see lights, camera, action, but they have
Yeah.
no clue what's happening behind the scenes. Someone may in their real life have may just buried their grandfather. Now they have to come on set and film a funeral scene.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's just like that content, though they are professionals, though they're great at their craft, they're still human. So to have someone there to help them decompress, to disconnect from the character while they're filming is so crucial. And it's not just for the persons that are in front of the camera,
Yeah.
also those behind the camera that constantly have to film to direct this content. And it's great content. We need it, but it could be triggering and bring up some things in your own personal life. So to have a person there to walk you through it from a psychological and emotional standpoint, so that you can decompress and detach yourself from the work, so you don't take those characters home to you, you
Yeah.
know, with you, is so important. So I, gave therapeutic services to the cast and crew, one-on-one wellness sessions, post-production, just to check in with them, after filming the content. Some of them, their real lives mirrored what's in For What It's Worth, right? Did that bring up anything for you before you go on to this next project? Is there anything that you need to reconcile emotionally within you so that you can continue showing up in the business well, right? And then also fostering conversations in the community, in the intersection of the film, having social impact initiatives. We just did a screening here in DC, and they had sound bath meditation. We screened the movie, and then we fostered a conversation between myself and the cast and crew around mental health in the Black community, right? So going into the community and sharing the film, but also creating impact, creating change, and assisting and spearheading that has been so crucial. But as a production therapist, this is something that I love because, like I said, in my own personal life, I just love theater. I love film. I love music. And I love also seeing people well. So to be able to intersect the arts, faith, and mental health all in one space is just like mind blowing for me. But
And
it's
look, I was gonna ask you that too, because it's like, you said you help these people. So how did you feel like, working on like BET as a production therapist? Like how did it make you feel inside, being able to do
um as you have already learned in these last 37 minutes, I'm very
that?
I have been on an emotional roller coaster these last few weeks. Like the film was just in Times Square on a billboard. And
Mm,
this is my very first movie credit.
mm,
Like this is my first film as a production therapist, and
mm,
it's in Times Square, and it's being really I just sometimes I just sit, and if I'm honest, I just cry because I'm just so overwhelmed, because I know just 4 years ago I didn't even want to be here. So to be in a space, to be able to be well, healthy, whole, and sound, and be able to utilize my expertise clinically and my experience to pour back into the community, to pour back into the creative arts community is so overwhelming, but it's so on time, and it just makes so much sense, right? But it's such a need. It's such a need, and I'm just so thankful and humbled and grateful that I've been chosen as one to help fulfill this need, because a lot of times persons in the industry are left to the wayside. I
mm,
mean, the celebrity culture, right? You're a director, you're an actor, you're this, you're that, you know, you should be good. No, 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 no. Like statistically, it shows that persons that are in the industry, in the entertainment industry, have higher rates of depression, anxiety, imposter syndrome, a lack of confidence, self-esteem, all of these different things. So to have production companies care about the cast and the crew that much, to say, hey, we have someone for you if you need it. I wasn't available to everybody. I was available to those that inquired, because you have to give people the right to self-determination to say, hey, I want to, sit down with Candace. So I think it's so important. And the feedback that I received from the cast and crew was just like, because I came on post production, right,
okay.
for this particular film. But one of the things, one of the castmates and a crew member has shared with me is, I wish you was here from the beginning while I was
That's good.
filming. I wish you was here then. Loretta Edwards Wilson says all the time, she says every production needs a production therapist,
Mm,
because not only the content, but the hours, the dynamics of relationships and personalities on set, all of these different things, conflict resolution, right?
mm,
To have someone there that is dedicated and committed to this project, to see it, from start to completion, is so important. And I think so many persons were just so appreciative. So it's my hope that this is something I'm trailblazing and pioneering, that one day, every person will walk onto a set or into a project and there's a therapist there, if needed, willing
manifest,
to be ready for them. You know what I'm
manifested
saying?
it, manifested
I
it to you.
am, yo. I am, because it is such a need, but I love it because, again, I know the power of storytelling, and it's just like I want to see persons well, so that y'all can keep creating and
Mm,
being dope and doing what it is that y'all do, because we need it. And I've been a beneficiary from it. Like I said, those comfort shows, persons that's before they come see me, they may watch, one of these shows. They may listen to a podcast
mm,
before they even think to come see a therapist or think to get help. And I know that to be true.
yeah.
I know that to be true.
And it's good, like you said that too, because a lot of actors are method actors, so they really lose themselves in the roles.
Yeah.
I remember when LL Cool J, when he said he played God on N Too Deep, he said he had to go to a hotel for like weeks and get that character out of them because they become that. So
Yes.
very important.
Yeah, and when you said that, I was thinking about Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
He was talking about when he played Killmonger in Black Panther, how he had to go see a therapist afterwards because he was so disconnected from those in his real life, because the character was emotionally disconnected,
Yeah.
that he didn't realize that he didn't detach himself from the character, that he had to go seek therapy, right?
Mm,
There's persons that I know of in the industry that have been asking for the producers to have someone on set. So
mm,
this is something that I said isn't completely new, but it's still so taboo. It's still so foreign. And it's my hope that one day, I know we have intimacy coordinators now, who a lot of them are like sex therapists that help, come on set to help actors, feel comfortable in those intimacy scenes. And they're recognized by SAG. It's my hope that one day production therapists are recognized by SAG, and
dope.
that there is something created there, that is a necessity, to make sure that's a a check
Yeah,
off of the
definitely.
checklist, right?
Uh-huh.
Because there's such a need, and to get the response from the cast and crew, from For What It's Worth, that some of them publicly have said, like, I did my thing when I came and got, the script, and saw it, and before I did the character breakdown, I'm like, yo, we got a production therapist on set, like, yo, what, like, and it just shows, right, the safety emotionally, mentally, that is being created on these projects, that I really hope one day it is recognized to that level, to that extent, from persons, like SAG. And that's what I am manifesting and praying over. You know what I'm saying?
It's gonna happen. You heard that
And
guy?
I'm gonna call you back. I'm like, yo, guess what happened? Guess
Son.
what happened?
So I also see, you facilitate a lot of prominent mental health dialogues, on
Mhm.
Howard and Yale. With Howard, being an HBCU, do you see like different dialogues between Yale and Howard?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I think there's just naturally the cultural differences, right?
Mhm,
Howard, we really foster conversations from the Black perspective,
mm,
right, from the Black perspective, whereas when I spoke at Yale, it was very universal, it was very diverse, right? It was Caucasians, it was Blacks, it was Indians, it was just so many different ethnicities and different populations demographically, right, in ages. So the mental health conversations there is very universal,
mm.
right, is very universal. Whereas, Howard is home because I graduated from Howard, but so it's I may be a little biased. So Howard is
HBCU.
home. Howard is home, but the conversations, I feel, are just deeper.
Mm.
because I mean, I'm saying this as a Black woman. I think our pain is different.
Yeah, definitely.
I think our pain is different. I think, historically is different. So I think we go to different levels of that. When you speak from a Black perspective, whereas when you're on other platforms, you have to be considerate and mindful of the room, of
Mm-hmm.
your audience, right? But one thing I don't do is code switch.
Mm.
So I'm still transparent and honest. I am just more mindful in different spaces of in- inclusivity,
Got you.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm not code switching. If you call me, you're going to get me.
So
Right?
you gonna get the full
So
pack.
you're going to get me. That's why today I have on this hoodie and this baseball cap. And you came on, I was just like, yeah, we here. We here. Because I was like, no, no, I'm not doing
I'm the same way. You gonna get me.
You're gonna get
Period.
me.
Period. That's
Yeah.
it. Yes.
And that's how I feel. If I like even with my own clients, they know me and we just here.
Yeah.
Because some days I am gonna roll up into some
Mm.
sessions with some sweats and a hoodie and a baseball cap. Some days I'm not. It just depends on how I feel that day. And I'm gonna honor that. How am I gonna teach you how to honor yourself if I'm not gonna honor me? That just doesn't make sense. It's just such a contradiction. So I'm gonna show up and be me. So even in those spaces when people reach out to me, I just ensure that they know that you're going to get me, whether I'm speaking in a room full of military personnel, where I'm speaking at churches, where I'm speaking on panels in on universities. You're going to get me because I lived through so much to water down who I am for anybody.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. I,
Yeah.
I remember when I was renting out theaters for my films or whatever, and
Uh-huh.
this lady was like, she was telling me, she's like, you should wear a suit before you go in there and talk to the head. But I was like, no, I want to show the kids where I came from. That you can do
Yes.
whatever, you can look like
Yep.
me, dress like
Yep.
me, and do whatever you put
And do
your mind to. And I still got that respect from them theater heads,
see.
period. They love me to this day.
Yeah, and I think that is so like I just think that's so dope because they need to see us.
Yes.
They need to see us and see that you can still be successful and do all the things that it is that you do and be you. And
Yeah.
you don't have to code switch your dialect. You don't have to code switch your dress, any of those things. You just get to a point where you're like, you either going to take it or you're not. And if you're not, then that opportunity wasn't for me. That
That's
person
right.
wasn't for me.
That's right.
That space wasn't. That's how I feel. If I'm invited into any space, that means that space needs what it is that I have, and I shouldn't have to change who I am to satisfy any. If that's the case, that's not the opportunity. Isn't for me.
That's right.
I'm so glad you didn't show up in that suit. You probably
Yes.
would have been
I know.
uncomfortable.
I know. Candace, you the female version of me. I feel it.
Yeah.
Everything you said, I be feeling. But let me ask you this, Candace. So, on your journey, you've been through a lot. What would you say has been your greatest challenge?
I think my greatest challenge, ooh, is sitting with little Candace.
Mm,
I think that was the greatest challenge because I think for so long subconsciously I was blaming myself for experiences that I didn't ask for. And I didn't realize how much I kept those parts of me in bondage. That once I sat with little Candace, it allowed me to be better to sit with my sons, to
mm,
sit with others. And I think that was one of the most painful things for me. And it was challenging because sometimes we block out our trauma.
yes.
We push it all the way back. We push it all the way back. And I think for so long, I just kept pushing things back. And I created this achievement addiction. I masked a lot of my pain through my achievements. Like I was going through so much, but my grades never reflected, my work never reflected it, none of these things, but it was being reflected internally,
I got you.
right? So I think being in therapy, like it is, it has so many rewards, but I can say this from being on both sides of the couch that it is challenging.
Mm.
because you are allowing someone to put a mirror to your face every time you see them.
That's right.
You're allowing someone to do that. And when that mirror was put in my face and I saw this little girl, I said, "Whoo, all right."
He's like,
And that was challenging. I think that was challenging because I think making the decision to live, I could say that was challenging, but it was doing the work because I said it, but we can say a lot of things if our actions don't align with it,
right.
right? It was doing the work and putting that bottle down and being like, yo, if I'm gonna heal, I gotta heal for real and I can't mask it, you know? I
Mhm.
gotta heal. And I think that was one of the most challenging parts, but it was the most rewarding at the same time because I don't think the same. I don't talk the same. I don't, just respond to things in life the same. And I think because of that, it allows me to show up with the energy, with the personality, like who I am. And it allows people to feel safe and comfortable.
I love it.
Even like in this industry where a lot of times we are so sheltered because God forbid I tell you something and then it's on the shade room. God forbid I tell you TMZ. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I tell people, like when they talk to me, they know it stays there
Mhm.
because again, I've been on both sides of this thing, and I don't take persons' experiences for granted. So the most challenging thing for me is sitting with me,
Okay. On the flip side of that, what would you say has been your greatest accomplishment?
being alive.
I like that.
Being alive and the fact that my boys still have their mother, my mother still has her daughter. I think being alive is my greatest accomplishment because I can't say all of the things that has transpired here as my greatest accomplishment because if I wasn't breathing, I wouldn't have been able to
Mm.
accomplish these things.
That's one of the greatest answers I ever heard.
No, but it's true. It's true. It's just like I could say, yo, I got a billboard in Times Square. I'm working on this. I'm working on this project. And all of those things are great. But
Yeah.
if I wasn't breathing, none of them would have come to pass. So I think the most rewarding part is I'm still breathing because I know what it's like to not want to be here anymore. And when I tell you, I was like making plans, I was trying to get everything together, insurance policies,
Mm.
like I had a plan, yo, I had a plan. I did not want to be here anymore. I had a plan. So the fact that I'm here and it's just like I haven't had any suicidal ideations in the last 4 years. I haven't. Life has been lifing as it does for all of us.
Period. Yes.
And it caused me to revert back to those old ways. It's just like, yo, I'm doing this. And it's a daily choice. I tell people all the time in healing, it's not linear. It can be messy sometimes.
Mm.
Every day I have to make the decision to be better,
Mm.
to choose better. But that doesn't mean that I don't feel my feelings though. Don't
Mm.
get me wrong. I do not minimize and play on that. But I give myself a moment to feel it and be like, I need this day. I need these 48 hours because
Mm.
right now I'm angry. Right now I'm upset. Right now I'm this. But I
Mm.
tell people all the time, we have emotions for a reason. It's information. That means something is going on. You have the right to be angry. It's what you do with that anger that's unhealthy. You have the right to be sad. It's what you do with your sadness that's unhealthy.
Mm.
But I give myself that grace.
Is it like I guess you know Alcoholic Anonymous, or when a person get out of drug and they say they're always going to be an alcoholic, so they get sponsors and have to work on this like
Mhm.
throughout the rest of their life. Is that like that for suicide also?
I, I think it's personal. I think it's very much so individualized. For me, and my therapist now that I have, when we first started working together, she asked me that question. She said, "Wait, you don't have a sponsor? You didn't go through, AA?" And I was just like, "No, I did my second attempt. Like I said, when I got arrested, they sent me to a program, and that sobriety lasted temporarily, but this last time, no. And I think it's because of where I was personally that I was so committed and gung ho that I just had a different approach to it. But I think it's very much so individualized. Like for some persons, they need that accountability daily. And that's okay. For some persons, they need like medication management to help them manage and regulate their emotions. And that's okay. Some persons just need accountability, like as far as a therapist, someone like a safe space. That's okay. It's not a like a cookie cutter response
Yeah.
or one size shoe fits all. All of it is okay. And I think that's where our individuality comes from. So for me, I have a therapist that I see weekly,
Gotcha.
and I have community, safe persons that I can confide in. And I think you have to build your own boardroom and say who sits in these seats in my life for me. And for you, it may be a sponsor. For you, it may be a psychiatrist, a therapist, a family friend, a faith based leader, whatever have you. But that is your boardroom for a reason. And my boardroom ain't gonna look like your boardroom,
Correct.
right? So I think all of it can be true.
Okay. So let me ask you this: what advice would you give to someone who's, like, it appears that they're doing great, but they want to, kill themselves and everything? What advice would you give to them?
Mhm. First, know that it's okay not to be okay, and you got to be able to normalize that experience. Whatever has transpired in your life that has led you to this point, you have to normalize that and say that it's okay that I'm in this pain, that it's okay that I'm feeling this way. Again, it's the action. It's the action, the response to it, and finding that safe space.
Mm,
And knowing sometimes our safe spaces aren't our families, members, family members aren't our friends, our loved ones. Sometimes that may be an extension, someone outside of that space to unpack so that you can breathe, so that you can continue to give tomorrow another chance. And knowing that again, healing is messy.
mm,
It's not linear. Some days you may have to cry it out all day long. Some days you may find some relief, but allow yourself to take it one day at a time and to give yourself that opportunity to give tomorrow another chance so that you keep going. And before you look, you'll look back and realize those suicidal thoughts are no longer lingering because you've started to do your work. But I think the first thing is normalizing this thing to say it's okay. You went through a lot, you experienced some losses, some L's that you didn't even see coming.
mm,
Know that it's okay to feel how you feel, but know that you are so valuable, so loved, so needed, so seen, that you still are needed in the earth.
mm. Because death is a permanent
It's a permanent decision.
to a temporary problem.
Yeah. And I think, when it comes to what you just said, I always say I'm grateful that I'm still here to allow my loved ones to know that I didn't want to do that. I think a peer of mine who I love, Kevin Hines, he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in California. And he always shares as soon as he jumped, he immediately regretted his decision. And he immediately said, I can't tell my dad I didn't want to do this. And by the grace of God, he survived that. But I always think about that. It's a permanent decision to this temporary grief that we, go through, right? The healing of it, you have to give yourself time of that. But that's a decision you can't take back.
That's right.
It's a decision you can't take back. And I always hope and pray for those that, hear this, interview, that they know that it's okay to
Yeah.
feel, that they know that it's okay not to be okay, and that they will have persons around them to give them the grace and compassion to do that. Because, like I said earlier, what may be tolerable for me may be terminal for someone else.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Um, Let me ask you this: do you have anything else coming up that you want to promote?
So, for what it's worth, is something that I still want to promote because it was
BT Plus, yeah.
BET Plus, BET Plus. So you can follow myself on Instagram at Candace Writes, CandaceWrites. And you can follow For What It's Worth movie on Instagram as well. So right now, I really want to continue pushing that because, those streaming numbers are so crucial, especially in the first 2 weeks. So yeah, watch For What It's Worth on BET Plus.
Okay. And y'all heard, y'all can look. I was gonna ask where can they reach you at. She already said it.
Yep.
Candace writes up in this. I'm gonna follow you, Candace, up in this.
Yes, likewise.
All right, my name is G Soldier on her. So when you see G Soldier, that is me up in this.
I got you. I got you.
So my last question that I love to ask all my guests:
Mm-hmm.
when it is all said and done, and you are long gone from this earth,
Mm.
what is it that you want the people to know about Candace Washington?
Wow. No one has ever asked me this question before, and it actually brings tears to my eyes. Wow, that is such a great question. I would want people to remember me by my grace for others, my love for others, my compassion, my humanitarian efforts, my passion for seeing people well and healed through generations. I would want people to remember me by being a voice to shift us from generational trauma to generational healing to generational wealth, um, and knowing the importance of healing through our lineage. I want people to remember me by those things.
That's probably well said. Look, you dropped a lot of jewels today, Kate. Like a lot
Well,
of knowledge, and like you said, you never know who's watching any of this stuff. And I
yeah.
believe if you can help one person, you done did something great. So
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you for having me.
It's
Thank you
no
so
problem. No
much.
problem. Hey, it was meant. Everything happens for a reason. It
Yes.
was meant for this to
Yes.
happen.
Yes.
I'm gonna definitely let you know. I'm gonna write an article for this and put it in the paper. So it'll probably be sometime this
Oh,
week.
that's so. Yes. Let me know. Let me know.
I got you. All right, and you have a good rest of your day. I
You
enjoyed this so
too.
much. And thank you. All right, I'll talk to you later.
All right.
All right, bye bye.